Hey, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind live stream, making an adjustment, bite down boxing, and we jump right into it. First of all, throw this disclaimer out there. I know Adrian Broner is a name is in the title of the video, and I'm kind of just riffing off of reading a couple of articles on Gerald Tucker, former fighter and trainer, Teron Woodley, Adrian Broner. But he made some comments defending the people that are calling Adrian Broner out for a fight. I'm just bringing this up because this, for me, is not really a reflection on anything about Adrian Broner necessarily, as much as some of the questions that I have make me understand that the business of boxing has to be excruciatingly painful for these guys to try to navigate everything that you have to navigate and go through to have a fight or a successful career. And so, again, I saw the article and read it. I don't know where Gerald Tucker was talking, what outlet he was talking to, but he basically was responding to the Zone, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and Connor Ben repeatedly calling out Adrian Broner as a potential opponent. Now that they want Connor Ben, since Eddie Hearn considers him to be an international superstar in the sport of boxing. And, I would just go to say, I hear Gerald Tucker. In the interview or the article that I read, he mentioned that he thought it was weak for individuals to continue to call out Adrian Broner. We know that Regis Prograis was another one calling out Broner for a fight a year and a half ago. But he said, it's weak to continue to call him out. But what got to me though was that he said Broner actually obviously needs 2 to 3 fights to rebuild himself and to get back. And, one question that just comes to mind, like, well, how do we do that? How do you, when you're at that level, when you're a former 4-division champion, how do you go and get in a couple of fights to rebuild yourself? We also know after Broner's last fight, I was in the virtual press conference for that one, and Broner pleaded with Al Heyman and the business people around him. He pleaded with them to keep me busy. And here it is, we're probably over a year now or nearing a year or whatever after that Giovanni Santiago fight, and there's been nothing. The other thing that this impacts other people, because we don't see Robert Easter Jr. fighting anymore either. And he was coming off of a hell of a performance and beating the kid from out of Tennessee. Dominated him that fight and really looked like many people had been wanting, Robert Easter to look. But we don't see any activity for him. Rashid Warren is also another guy in Cincinnati, and he had a big victory, a big knockout, first or second round on Showtime, and now he's been inactive too. So like I said, I look at this and I'm just like, this sport has got to be extremely exhausting, to these guys to try to get anything out of it, to get a fair shake. But I think I put in the title, does boxing need a G League of sorts? We saw Klay Thompson, he's returned he just missed 2 years of action to an Achilles tendon injury and then an ACL or whatever. He just made it back to the Golden State Warriors within the last week and a half. But before that happened, he was designated. There was an announcement that he was designated to to assignment or something to the G League team for the Golden State Warriors. I don't remember what G League team is affiliated with the Golden State Warriors, but after going through the entire rehab and progressing to getting back to 5-on-5 and practicing all of that, they made the decision to send him to the G League to get some live action, some live gameplay, examine him, evaluate, how he recovers and responds to that. And then they brought him up to the big team and, against NBA players. And that was the process for him to get his way back. Boxing wise, we also saw for the transition or Jaime Munguia, as a guy who became a world champion at 154 pounds. They made a determination that they needed to get him up to middleweight. It was difficult for him to make that 154 pounds, but now you relinquish your title and you move up a class. And how do you get back into title contention? How do you have fights and get paid? How do you advance your career? And that's what we've been watching for him. So anyway, getting back to my part, like how does Adrian Broner get these 2 to 3 fights that he needs, and to have a productive year where you have 2 or 3 fights and you kind of live in that quote unquote Spartan life or that true boxer lifestyle to keep your weight in check, to avoid the fluctuations in between camp, maybe to keep the fights on the schedule, to keep everything going. But how do you do that? And then Broner is one of these guys who, like many of the several of the key PBC guys, they all have their own promotional companies. So conceivably, why couldn't Adrian Broner go and do a fight in Cincinnati and do it on his own? And now I know that's going to assume a lot of risk. What television people could you get involved? We saw Clarissa Shields go do her own pay-per-view with Salida Promotions, go headline her own pay-per-view in her hometown of Flint last year when she fought Mariev Decaire. The numbers were reportedly abysmal. It was 5 or 6 fights that were streamed on that card. Most of those matchups fell apart. Marlena Esparza did fight on there. Jamie Mitchell, who's now a world champion, she fought somebody on there. Esparza is with Golden Boy. And I can't remember. Oh, and then I think the heavyweight, not the heavyweight, what is she? Light heavyweight. She also fought on there. I cannot remember her name. So, shout to Salida and Clarissa because they tried. Why don't we see that over here on this side to where Adrian Broner, you go out here and throw your own fight. You organize your own fight. Go out and get your sponsors and all of that together. And I honestly think it could work to some degree. Now, the only thing is, if you try to involve the whole camp, how many members of the team could eat off of this event, because Robert Easter Jr. is probably not trying to go in here and fight anybody for $60,000, $50,000. Him needing to get the right opponent too is going to be difficult because now that you'd have to pay for the right guy to take him where he's trying to go, you're going to have to pay. Whereas for Broner, he probably could fight a relatively unknown person for some decent money and still get a bag that he's satisfied with if it's part of a bigger plan. But it just doesn't seem feasible that, and this is out of his own mouth when he continues to mention, he will be world champion again. What is the path back to that, to even making that happen? So I get it, man. Like I said, this is really not a criticism and an attack on him. I just see Gerald Tucker being optimistic and throwing some things out there and defending, a business partner and a longtime friend, friend or a pretty significant relationship for him. But I just want to, I really would like to see how it all plays out. How does it work? How does it get done? And I think it's also painful or disheartening. Disheartening. It's disheartening to sit here and hear an Adrian Broner in a post fight press conference, pleading with the people that could help him to give him a chance to earn a living and to continue to with whatever aspirations he has in the game. I don't know if the money is more important or the titles, or they're both at play in the same thing. I don't know. But just to hear the guy say, hey, keep me busy. Like, if I don't have some structure in my life and a goal to be working through constantly, I get out here and get in my own way. And then, like I said, then you get into you get down the road and turn around, and this is really kind of like the only option is for someone like Eddie Hearn and Matchroom to be dangling a bag out there. Hey, come fight our guy who's on the way up. We know your life isn't really together. We catch you at a vulnerable moment, but you are a talented dude. Do you really want this bag? Do you need this bag? And then we get into guys where they have to make, decisions that put them in a precarious situation. So like I said, man, I saw the comments out there. Broner is a prize fighter. He has not officially retired from the game. I know we got people, the constant conversations about clout chasing and using somebody's name, so on and so forth. With regards to Conor Ben, the way the way the title picture is all tied up with the older guys and with the guys with the money behind them, and the Crawford, Spence, and then you guys connected to Spence. It would be interesting how it's a weird moment for the division, because I don't want to see necessarily. I don't want to see a Virgil Ortiz Jr. against a Conor Ben right now, or a Virgil Ortiz Jr. against a Jaron Ennis right now. I think the top two are the younger guys in Ortiz and Ennis. I think these guys have excellent shots at becoming world champions and furthering the popularity of the sport, or at least maintaining it, as there's some turnover in the division. So I just feel like those guys could meet up at the right time, and the game would be better for it. I don't really understand right now why a lot of fans would push for those guys to fight one another at this stage. But, that depends on your understanding of how things work. I do think the fight with Maurice Hooker, if he was interested in taking that fight, I know sadly, he's a guy that's kind of, after being a 140-pound champion and losing a fight to, losing his title to Ramirez, and then being defeated by Virgil Ortiz Jr., he's up at welterweight. He's kind of sliding into that role of a gatekeeper, journeyman, and whatnot. And he still would like to be a guy that's trying to work his way up the ranks, but now you're being used as a guy for other fighters to make that happen. But again, you get out here and people offer you fights and if the number is right, you got to go take those fights because you have bills to pay and whatnot. So I do like that fight a little bit better. Hooker and Conor Ben. Don't really have a favorite in that one, but I think that would be a decent fight. lastly, just before I get off here, but, even looking at a guy like Regis Prograis, I'm hearing him on a couple of podcasts, and he's a guy that seems to be in limbo. I don't know if he's done, his 2 fights or whatever it was with the PBC. I don't know if that's over with. We see the fight with Adrian Broner, which I thought was an excellent non-title fight for junior welterweight. And a fight, easy, a marketable, sellable fight, but it never happened. But where is he now? And I listened to him on Chris Manning's podcast a week or two ago, and it's just, again, it's disheartening to see, here's a guy who was a unified champion 2 fights ago in his career, went to the World Boxing Super Series and was establishing himself. And now here he is. He can't even get a fight. He's sitting here waiting for the phone to ring. Like I said, boxing is just an extremely, extremely difficult business. And it's hard. Your heart goes out to some of these guys. I like to see guys who this is the what they signed up for. They have good business partners around them. They're paid fairly for what they sacrifice and risk, and they're able to have careers. But it just seems like right now the game is in a very unstable, volatile, at a volatile moment, and I'm wondering how some of these guys continue to carry on with it. So anyway, bite down boxing. Don't let them count you out. Pay me no mind, sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.